after the final buzzer. This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JB, what you up to, Shippers? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Sexton got the lane. Moody played the D. Moody got another rebound. Everybody has to be ready to help. Moody came over exactly the right time. Podziemski covering play. It started with the D. They push it to double figures again. Podziemski's got his swagger back.
Yeah, Brandon Podziemski's played well since the return from the abdominal injury to the shooter. Maybe his best game as a Golden State Warrior, and without Steph Curry, the Warriors find a way. It wasn't always pretty, and at times, especially early, it looked like the Warriors might be a little bit of trouble in this one, but they do go on to win over the Utah Jazz. 114 to 103 is the final as we welcome you into Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR Esports Leader. 808 KNBR, the number if you want to jump in and join the conversation relating this one. 808 KNBR. Also appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch. Good evening to the YouTube chat. Appreciate a lot of the regulars as people continue to file in here on this Tuesday night, first of a back-to-back, and the Warriors finding themselves back at the 500 mark once again, 23 up and 23 down. Tougher task tomorrow with the Oklahoma City Thunder coming to Shea Center. The Oklahoma City Thunder with the best record in the NBA right now at 37-8, 45 games into this thing. And so the Warriors are going to need to get Stephen Curry back, and we'll see what happens as far as now the trade deadline, which is just over a week away, 9 days away. Really closer to 8 at this point because it's in the afternoon, a week from Thursday on February the 6th. And what will the Warriors look to do, and will the Warriors look to be back in on Jimmy Butler remains to be seen. Reports today, and we'll get to it coming up here in the 10 o'clock hour, but the Warriors looking like, because the price has come down on Jimmy Butler, given his third now suspension from the Miami Heat, that the Warriors might be able to get him on some kind of a bargain. Will they look to do that or not? I think other teams obviously involved. And then the big news NBA-wise today, De'Aaron Fox doesn't care about the Kings' little hot spell in January. It sounds like he wants out of Sacramento, and the Kings organization may be taking the initiative to open up for business, given his reluctance to sign a contract extension with Sacramento. So we can get into that as well at some point between now and 11 o'clock here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627 as we are here from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Cheers to everyone watching here on YouTube and Twitch as well. And Kyle, let's check the audio levels here. I think we should be good.
Yeah, it's weird. You sound clear over there, but I am seeing some chats in the YouTube saying that your audio is not that good.
Yeah, it might be an issue. I think maybe getting from the access line to the computer and the video stream there. But we can definitely we'll try to troubleshoot. It looks like I have everything plugged in here correctly. I'm pretty good at keeping these things straight. But yeah, we'll continue. We might take a little bit of an early timeout here to try to make sure that things are in line, and so we'll see if we can get that corrected here between now and the top of the hour. So 808 KNBR, some thoughts on this one, and not a lot of thoughts on this one really at this point, which is I mean, really a dull game. You know, Stephen Curry, the news comes out about 4:30 that Steph's not going to be available or popped up on the injury report as questionable. Look, Steph's only played in one set of back-to-backs since November. And, you know, it was last week against Sacramento when the Warriors got beat in Sacramento, played that game where they built the 17-point lead, ended up losing it down the stretch there, and then came back and he played the second of the back-to-back against the Bulls. Warriors able to beat Chicago in the second of the back-to-back. And the question was, well, is Steph back and playing in back-to-backs? And I think that was something that they were trying to get his knees to a point where he could handle it. But he came in and was having some issues today, according to Steve Kerr, with those knees. And so they felt it was best with the training staff to give him a rest. In the front end, obviously, if you're looking to sit him out of one of these two games, you would want it, I think, to be tonight, because in theory you've still got a shot, given who was not playing in this game for Utah, and that list was lengthy. No Lauri Markkanen, no Jordan Clarkson, no John Collins, Walker Kessler, Johnny Juzang, or Taylor Hendricks, all out in this game for the Jazz. So I think if you're going to pick one of the two games, give Steph an extra day. This team hadn't played since Saturday night, so he gets Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off, and the hope is that Steph will be ready to get out there and play tomorrow. The Warriors got off to a sluggish start in this one, 17-7 down without Steph Curry. And immediately I'm thinking, oh boy, is this thing going to be in jeopardy, even given that list that I just read off of guys that are not going to be playing and didn't play in this game for the Utah Jazz. But the Warriors able to climb back into it, tie the game at 27-7, 27 apiece, part of a 22-4 run to end up with a 12-point lead middle of the second quarter, 39-27, after trailing 23-16 in that first quarter. And the Warriors getting positive contributions in this one and positive contributions in that stretch. Probably Dennis Schroeder's best game with the Warriors. Second time he reaches the 20-point mark for Golden State. The other one against the Wizards, going back, 10 days ago at the beginning of this lengthy home stretch with the 8 out of 9 at home, and the Warriors able to get another win. It's basically been splits for the Warriors in this one. They split the Washington-Boston games. They split the Sac game in Sacramento with the Bulls game. They now split the Laker game with the game against Utah tonight. We'll see what happens, obviously, with OKC and Phoenix, and then Orlando coming in to close this thing out before the Warriors hit the road, and the trade deadline coming up as well, as the Warriors look to move forward here and try to stay afloat long enough to see if they can make any impactful moves at the deadline that have the potential to salvage the final third of this season and the post-deadline portion of the schedule. But individually tonight, as it relates to this game, not always pretty, but Kevon Looney making a positive impact on this game off the bench. The Warriors 51-27 bench advantage. That proved to be a difference maker for them in this one. Moses Moody, solid in the starting lineup. He's played pretty well, getting more opportunities over the course of the last week. Andrew Wiggins didn't shoot it well, but they needed his 19 points and his aggressive play overall in this one to allow themselves to prevail. So some decent individual performances in this game for the Warriors. Quentin Post had a tough second half sequence where he missed a dunk and then lost the ball getting back and ended up giving up a foul on a play where it just awareness, right? And I think probably the most difficult stretch we've seen him play in terms of just a singular offense, defense. Oh, wow, he looks a little bit, even at 24 years old, like a rookie, but he still was able to knock down a couple of threes, and he throws his weight around and throws his fouls around and had 10 boards, and so made some semblance of an impact on the game. And so it all added up to a win. And tonight, kind of the quintessential, got the win, better than the alternative, didn't have Steph Curry, and you move on back to 500, and not with many, at least in my mind, grandiose takeaways as it relates to this one that move forward, other than Schroeder, you need it tonight. If you get a bad Schroeder game, you're maybe losing tonight without Steph Curry. He looks much more in command with the freedom to just shoot it and let it rip on some of these games where he's had opportunities with Stephen Curry out. And Podziemski, I think, is the biggest takeaway of the night. Brandon Podziemski played 33 minutes. Brandon Podziemski had a scoring night of 20 points. He knocked down 4 threes. He was doing the Podziemski things, rebounding, assist numbers. He got a steal. Brandon Podziemski seemingly has found his game. And I think it goes back to prior to the time that he missed due to injury. But I think he's picked up right where he left off before the injury and is starting to look like somebody who can fall back in and be a rotation player for the Warriors here. And I think somebody that Steve Kerr in pretty short order is going to be comfortable enough throwing back into the starting lineup next to Stephen Curry. And look, we'll see what happens as it relates to Jimmy Butler and whether the Warriors are truly in on Jimmy Butler, whether the price is so low to this point that Butler would, be able to be acquired, basically without having to give up a whole heck of a lot. I mean, at this point, Kuminga's off the table. It would basically be Wiggins' salary filler, and, we'll see. Maybe one future pick. And again, we have to see what happens with Jimmy Butler in terms of the option that he has for next year, whether the Warriors would look to extend him, at what level the Warriors would look to extend him. If he opts out, you wouldn't obviously want to trade Andrew Wiggins for Jimmy Butler and then have Jimmy Butler walk and head elsewhere. Although, again, the Warriors would have the ability to sign Jimmy Butler to a more expansive offseason contract than anybody else would in acquiring his bird rights in the deal from Miami. So they'd be in a prime position to be able to figure something out, to be able to pay Jimmy Butler large and keep Jimmy Butler around here for the next couple of years next to Steph Curry. And then you get an opportunity to fill the rest of the roster out. You see what you need down the stretch here, and you look potentially to the offseason based on where you end up and what you exactly need to add. All that to say, I don't think a Podziemski would be going in a deal like that. I don't think a Kuminga would be going in a deal like that. I don't really think a Moses Moody would be going in a deal like that, especially if you have to give up Wiggins for the salary purposes. And so we're about to potentially find out just how low the asking price is being dropped to in terms of the Jimmy Butler bargain basement, because I don't think if it was at that level, and look, this is part of why the Warriors took themselves out of the equation in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes going back to a few weeks to a month ago. It's the simple fact that they wanted it to play out to a point where if only they could get him on a bargain, would they continue to entertain it? And so I think that's where some of the reporting has led down the path of maybe the Warriors being more engaged in looking to attempt to make a deal. But you go out, you lose a game like tonight, and you fall to 2 under, and I think still the question would be, would it be worth it for next year and beyond? And the answer to that could be yes. But I think there is, as the Warriors continue to possibly hang at the 500 mark, still an opportunity to make some semblance of a run as you look at the standings and where things sit for this season. And so getting back to 500, especially when you've got Oklahoma City and Phoenix the next two, getting back 500 tonight, I mean, tonight's a game that you really, in many ways, it's kind of a must. So all of that being said, I think the younger players that don't wind up going in any deal, whether it's a deal for Jimmy Butler, whether it's a deal for Vucevic, whether it's a deal for anybody, those guys are likely going to have to be counted on for more here down the stretch of the season. And to see Brandon Podziemski get back to playing closer to the guy that we saw last year and the guy who was expected to at least make an incremental jump this year, I think is a real positive sign as we go from the game tonight and Utah and all of the different contributions that were made and head toward the second of a back-to-back where the Warriors will have the potential to get Stephen Curry back into the fold and take a shot. Look, tomorrow's going to be a tough task no matter what. The next 2 to 3 games really are going to be until the Warriors play Utah again next Tuesday in Salt Lake City. These are going to be difficult games. Orlando's been struggling a little bit of late. Phoenix has been playing a little bit better of late, and they're one of the teams reported to be in the mix for Jimmy Butler as well. And Phoenix has vaulted their way all the way up to 8th just by winning 3 in a row. So that tells you how much even a little mini winning streak has the potential to mean. But as things sit here tonight, the Warriors still right there, a game behind Sacramento. Sacramento currently 10th at 24-22. Warriors first team out, a game back a sack, but only 3 back a 6th and 3.5 back a 5th at this point, with San Antonio trailing the Warriors, and the Spurs potentially could be in the mix to get De'Aaron Fox, and that obviously has the potential to flip the standings a little bit, although I don't think Sacramento's actually in as bad a spot. Even if they look to move De'Aaron Fox, I don't think they're in as bad a spot as some on the outside necessarily think. In fact, I'm of the belief it might be the best thing to happen to the Kings to be able to openly acknowledge the fact that it's time to move on. And so we'll see how all of that shakes out. We'll get into more of that coming up here, potentially in this 10 o'clock hour, and also on Just Dubs, where we talk a little bit more of the grander scope of the NBA each and every Saturday morning here on KNBR. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. If you want to give me a call or shoot me a text here, we'll get into the YouTube chat coming up. We got Sounds of Dubs OT, which is going to have a heavy trade deadline focus and a Warriors back in the Jimmy Butler business potentially focus. But the Warriors do get the win. They do get back to 500. Give me your key takeaways from this one if you have them. Got to be honest, I rarely say this, but kind of hard to stay awake in the building behind me there at Chase Center tonight. But the Warriors, again, a better than the alternative kind of a win, 114-103. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680 Sports League.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McNeil, founder of Wesley Financial Group, the original timeshare cancellation expert. And I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. All you need to do is give my office a call. I will send you a timeshare exit information absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free info kit. 800-990-1551. That's 800-990-1551.
I had the worst dream last night. We were in a car crash. The kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, huh?
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes, and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
Hey, it's Greg Papa. For the best pizza in the world, I go straight to Tony's Pizza Napolitana in North Beach. Tony's has been crowned the best pizza in the world, whether it's Neapolitan, New York, Detroit, Sicilian, or Grandma style. Tony has it all. And Tony isn't just about pizza. They've got incredible fresh pastas, and their spicy bucatini, one of my all-time faves. Don't forget Tony's other spots like Capo's, Toscano Brothers Bakery, and Slice House locations across the Bay Area, and even at Chase Center and Levi Stadium.
Frustrated because you can't pay your taxes? The IRS bill demanding payment may be wrong, especially if you haven't filed tax returns, because the IRS and state make up punishment returns when you don't file, which can be way more than you really owe. Sometimes just filing the tax return makes the payment disappear. We check the tax bill. If it's wrong, we get it corrected. If it's right, we want to make a great deal for you. All kinds of great deals exist. Just pay part and they forgive the rest. Pay in monthly installments that you can afford. Get the penalty forgiven. Have the IRS leave you alone until you're able to make a deal. or move the payment away from you to a former spouse or business partner where it belongs. We want to explain all your rights and options. Call Moskowitz LLP at 888-TAX-DEAL. That's 888-TAXDEAL. 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. MoskowItzLLP.com.
It's playoff time, and you can take full advantage by winning some cash with Sleeper Picks.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Wiggins attacking, and Wiggins denied. Santos tracks it down. Moody attacking, dropped it to Wiggs to lay it up and in. What a play by Moses Moody. Moses Moody told Andrew Wiggins, I'll give you another shot at it.
Big night for Brandon Pajemski. Nice night for Moses Moody. Andrew Wiggins with 19. Warriors win over the Jazz, 114-103. We're back here from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Stop by, say hi. We got Alex and Mike tonight running the show at the controls here at Harmonic. And yes, big thanks to Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios and Greg Silver and Overnight Dave lurking in the background. For getting the audio issues connected, troubleshot and reconfigured back in our studios to the YouTube portion of the proceedings here. So everybody on YouTube should be able to hear loud and clear the clean feed now. We were getting the clean feed back to the board and the radio part, but there was a little bit of a setting change, not to get too behind inside baseball, behind the curtain, but there was a setting change on the computer back in the studio that basically gets everything out to you on the YouTube chat. So we should be coming to you loud and clear now. Warriors win 114-103. 808 KNBR if you want to jump in and join the conversation on the radio. The Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line is open for you as well, as the Warriors now 23-23. If you want to chime in, weigh in on this one
as the Warriors first to the back-to-back. They get the job done tomorrow against Oklahoma City. Going to be a different task at hand for the Warriors, but the Warriors able to win this one. No Steph Curry tonight. Stephen Curry missing this one. Popped up on the injury report in the 4 o'clock hour. Again, had a few people in the YouTube chat that were, hey, what's going on with Steph Curry? Bilateral knee injury management. So basically resting due to the bilateral knee issues that he's had, the tendonitis that has kept him from playing in back-to-backs from right before Thanksgiving. He played in the weekend before Thanksgiving. He played in New Orleans and San Antonio, and then had not played in a back-to-back at all for basically 2 months. I think the Warriors had 4 or 5 of them. Steph didn't play in both sides of either of those, and then did last night, and I think, or last week rather, when the Warriors played in Sacramento and Chicago. And I think the hope was that Steph would be able to get out there and play in back-to-backs again here for the foreseeable future. But for him to come up off the 3 games in 4 days that the Warriors had just played before having the last 2 days off, he looked physically like he didn't have it against the Lakers, and the 4 of 17 shooting, and it was the 3rd game in 4 nights at that point for Steph. And then the 2 days off, Sunday, Monday, I think you're hoping, all right, Steph's going to be good to go tonight, but he came in, wasn't quite feeling like he wanted to, got with the training staff, and the Warriors ultimately said, hey, let's give you the 3rd consecutive day off without a game, and then see if that helps it to where you can play in the 2nd of the back-to-back, because the Warriors do now, after tonight, play tomorrow against Oklahoma City, then Friday against Phoenix, and then they get 2 more days off before they play the Orlando Magic on Monday, and then they will hit the road. And then the games are really going to come fast and furious on the road, with a back-to-back, and then an off day, and then a couple of games, and then another off day and another back-to-back to go into the All-Star break. So I think they're trying to get in front of this thing a little bit, with the hope being that Steph can play tomorrow. Tomorrow, anytime you have also a back-to-back where one of the games is a nationally televised game and the other game is not, and tomorrow is a nationally televised game on ESPN with the Warriors facing the Thunder, you typically need to look to rest your guy in the non-nationally televised game. So I think when Steph came in a little banged up, you look at, yes, the Warriors can still win tonight. I think much more likely to be able to win tonight against the Jazz. But tonight's just a ho-hum January game. You can rest him there, but if you choose to rest him on an ESPN game against the team with the best record in the NBA, then the league can crack down on you a little bit. So I think we're going to see Steph tomorrow. I think we're going to see Steph on Friday against Phoenix. I think we're going to see Steph Monday against Orlando, and then the next back-to-back will come. Maybe we don't see him in Salt Lake City next Tuesday, but would see, or next Wednesday rather, but then we would see him against the Lakers in what is a TNT game after the trade deadline. So 808 KNBR, if you want to jump in and join the conversation. Let's get to some chats here, and then we're also going to get into the big headlines of the day as it relates to the Warriors with respect to them potentially being back in on Jimmy Butler. That's coming up in just a moment. But read the Steed in the YouTube chat. No Curry, Dre, or Kuminga tonight, so I'll take a win regardless. I look, we're not in the business, I think, if you're a Warrior fan, of rating wins at this point. They're 23-23. You don't get to rate wins. You don't get to you'll take any win possible at this point. And yeah, the injury scare, as Robert mentions, the injury scare on Schroeder. Robert pointing out the Warriors lucky Schroeder didn't blow out his ankle. Yeah, Schroeder had to be helped to the locker room. Went up on that drive, helped to the locker room by Drew Yoder and also by Rick Celebrini. And you're thinking, wow, he's not only maybe done for the night in the immediate aftermath, but is he going to have to miss some time? And then 5 minutes later, he was back at the bench and back in the game. So, and the Warriors needed him to finish the game tonight just to earn themselves a win. So that is definitely dodging one as it relates to Dennis Schroeder because, he's somebody that, trying to get him acclimated, but also could have the potential, as Robert mentions, to be in some kind of a deal. Robert, adding on, Warriors will beat most of the teams that are tanking the rest of the season. Any of the other games are a toss-up at best. Until they can get a little bit healthier, I don't think that's that far from the truth. Oh, and don't forget Minnesota. Oh, wait, I kid. They don't actually play Minnesota anymore. They've already beaten Minnesota 3 times in 4 games. But, I think as you look at this, right now they truly are just trying to tread water. And I do feel like they're in a little bit of a better place than they were a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we're talking about the Warriors sounding off as if it might be for the best to just shut it down. I think it's still incredibly fragile, and the Warriors are doing a nice job of taking advantage of the semi-automatic wins on their schedule. Chicago at home with Steph playing in the second of a back-to-back. Washington tonight. The game in Salt Lake City coming up next week. Like, the Warriors have done a pretty good job lately here, that Toronto game in Toronto notwithstanding, of basically winning the games that you have to win in survival mode right now to try and just stick at 500, as much as that still keeps you on the outside looking in of even the 10 seed at this point. But it keeps you fighting for whatever may lay ahead in terms of a possible trade deadline move and the like. And so, we'll see. And why are we talking about that? Because, really the majority of the trade deadline discussion over the course of the last couple of weeks has shifted exclusively to Nikola Vucevic. I mean, really, it's every other player the Warriors had been linked to had seemingly been shot down to a point where you're thinking, all right, are they going to do anything? Are they going to even be good enough to even warrant going after somebody like Vucevic? But with the news that broke yesterday and Jimmy Butler's third now suspension laid down after he left a shoot-around when he was told that he wasn't going to be starting, the price has dropped seemingly so dramatically that the Warriors and other teams now believe that they can get back in the mix and are actively pursuing Butler. And so let's hear the latest from Shams Charania of ESPN as he addressed just where things stand.
The Heat are engaged with multiple teams on Jimmy Butler, including, from what I'm told, the Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors. The Heat are operating in the landscape as a team that's motivated with interested suitors. And as far as a price tag on Jimmy Butler goes, it's been described to me in league circles that the Heat are looking for shorter-term contracts along with draft assets, and they have not yet received an offer that they're moving forward with. But the trade deadline looms on February 6th, and what we've seen play out here is a divorce in real time. These two sides, Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat, they've had 5 overly successful seasons together. 2 runs to the NBA Finals, another run to the Eastern Conference Finals where they almost made it to the NBA Finals. But what's transpired over the last month and a half to 2 months is a relationship that is evaporating.
All right, I'm going to bring in Kyle Haar here. Shorter-term contracts and draft capital. As we focus on that, and we know Phoenix is the team that obviously wants to try to get something done to acquire Jimmy Butler, but they have to move off of Bradley Beal to make it happen. When you hear shorter-term contracts, what does that make you think, Kyle? Does that make you think no more than 1 more year on the deal? Does that make you think preferably expiring? Could shorter-term be 2 more years on the deal? Give me your thought. I need a second opinion on shorter term contracts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking mainly expiring contracts.
Expiring or 1 year?
Yeah, or 1 year. Right.
Okay, so really the Warriors to do this deal would have to include Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green to make it work from a salary point of view. Now, what's interesting is we've talked about Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins has the remainder of this year 26.2, next year 28.2, and then he has a $30.1 million player option for the 2026-27 season. So he controls the next 2 years beyond this one. Draymond is off the table. In my mind, there has been no hint of Draymond, the Warriors being willing to look at Draymond. And Draymond also addressed the likelihood or the difficulties related to the Warriors potentially getting Jimmy Butler. We'll hear from him coming up. But Draymond's off the table for the purposes of this conversation as far as I'm concerned. So if you start to look at Jimmy Butler, and you need to look at Jimmy Butler's contract and where things sit. So Jimmy Butler right now is, as I bring it up here, Jimmy Butler's got, 48.7 on his deal for this year, and then he's got a player option. So if you do the math on this and you go through, and by the way, the Warriors, because they're hard capped at that first apron, the Warriors can't take really anything more than they would go out in a trade, because they're within hundreds of thousands of dollars of being at that hard cap point. So Andrew Wiggins would be 26.2 of the 48.7. So that leaves 22.5 remaining that the Warriors would have to be looking to send out in a deal. So 22.5. And I'm looking at where things sit here. You could send Dennis Schroeder as part of that. That's 13. He'd be an expiring. So I'm looking at expirings, Kyle, and I'm looking guys with 1 year left on the deal. Wiggins has to be in it, so I'm going to include Wiggins no matter what. And you look at what's being sent out. So you look at Schroeder, 13, Kyle Anderson, 8.7. That basically would do it as far as cover. That would be 21.7 that would go out. The Warriors also have, if Schroeder's not going to be in the deal. Now, the problem with Kyle Anderson, though, is he has a non-guarantee of the 2026-27 year. So he's got the rest of this year and next year guaranteed at 9.2. Buddy Hield's out. He's got multiple years and a player option. So Buddy Hield's not going as part of this anywhere. Kevon Looney and GP2 are the other ones. You've got GP2 9-1 and Kevon Looney 8. So you got GP 9-1, Kevon 8. That's 17 right there. You could maybe look to do that, and then you'd have to get into like a Pajemski and a Lindy Waters, something like that. But then the question would be, what kind of draft capital would be looking to go out if you're the Warriors and Jimmy Butler, and where would Golden State draw the line? Would it be one first-round pick? Because Kuminga's not, I don't think, in this deal, which is why it's appealing to the Warriors, who have been hell-bent on wanting to try and hang on to Kuminga. So Kuminga's out. I'm not even including Kuminga in this one bit. But what do you think the draft compensation, Kyle, would be? Is it one future first? I don't think the Warriors would be necessarily looking to do it if it was beyond more than one. And would they have to send Wiggins somewhere else and maybe draft capital two different places in an attempt to be able to facilitate this thing?
Yeah, I think ideally they're not going to send more than two. So 3 or more is definitely off the table.
Yeah. I think 2 probably is.
2, maybe one of them is protected. I don't know. But definitely 1, especially if Kuminga. And now with Kuminga probably not being traded for Jimmy, I think it's getting closer to a better move for the Warriors.
Yeah, and the other part is, could Kuminga become someone that would go elsewhere in lieu of maybe giving up one of those picks? Because I just, again, the Heat, I think, might be looking to acquire a player from a third team in this, and maybe a pick would have to go in two different – a pick and or a younger player might have to go in two different directions for the ability to have a team pick up Wiggins, basically, that may not necessarily be interested in Wiggins, but is also trying to – because that's the other part. Like, who's truly interested in Wiggins at this point? And could Milwaukee potentially be somebody that gets into the mix? Phoenix has been trying to make things happen with Milwaukee as it relates to Bradley Beal, and Middleton's been somebody who's got a high salary that maybe would be on the move to Miami for the shorter term. Could the Warriors look to maybe get that mix where Wiggins ends up on the move to Milwaukee with Middleton on the move potentially to Miami, and the Warriors sending picks in a deal to facilitate it? But where are you now, 808 KNBR, on the Warriors re-engaging, as Sham said, as it relates to getting back in the mix for Jimmy Butler? I have to think that it's no Kuminga and one pick, and Wiggins being and honestly no Podziemski and maybe no TJD either, or Moody. Like, I think the Warriors would be looking to do this almost exclusively as a buy low on Jimmy, basically getting Jimmy Butler for a price to where it would be foolish to not get Jimmy Butler, even considering the fact that the Warriors have been hell-bent here over the last couple of weeks saying, nope, not doing it, not mortgaging the future, not interested in Jimmy Butler as it relates to him coming in and potentially messing with the locker room. All of a sudden, the Warriors may be back in the Jimmy Butler business based on the price coming down. Funny how that works. The other thing I wonder is how far the Warriors would be willing to go for Jimmy Butler at his age, 35, in terms of a contract extension. Because let's not forget, the reason that the Heat are in the position they're in as it relates to Jimmy Butler is the fact that Pat Riley said, hey, I want you to be more available and need you to be more available. Otherwise, we're not paying you again. And so I think as you look at that, they're not paying him. And so would the Warriors be willing to pay him? And for how long? We know the Warriors were willing to go the 4 years to get Paul George. Would the Warriors be willing, could they come to some kind of a compromise where it's a high-end extension for Jimmy Butler, but it's a 2-year high-end extension for Jimmy Butler? Again, he's got the 1-year opt-in in his back pocket, which I think the Warriors would love. But do you have to tack on a couple of more years on the back end of that? Do you have to rip it up and give him 3 because he's given 1 back? That is also, I think, part of the equation. In addition to, let's be honest, I mean, Jimmy Butler has gone with the nuclear option at every turn when he's left every one of his prior teams. And so if you're the Warriors, are you comfortable with that? And not that it's uncomfortable in 2025 or 2026, but is it going to be uncomfortable in 2027, 2028? That's where I think the Warriors have to also continue to ask themselves that question. And look, is Wiggins too valuable on the surface to give up? And I've been reluctant. Look, for me, the deal's been more about in its prior iterations when it would have taken a month ago Wiggins and Kuminga. I would have been willing to do Wiggins and Kuminga a month ago. But Wiggins was the tough part for me. In a perfect world, you'd want Wiggins and Jimmy Butler. But if he's not going to cost you Kuminga and he might only cost you 1 future first, I think you'd have to do it on the Wiggins v. Jimmy Butler. And it was floating around earlier. And Kyle, I'm sure you saw this, but the the stats comparison between Wiggins this year and Jimmy Butler. And look, Jimmy Butler's quit on his team this year. Flat out quit on the Miami Heat in pretty gutless and despicable fashion, to be brutally honest. Like, that in and of itself is a major league red flag. But as you look at the numbers, comparing, and I'm going to do this as it's been filtering all over social media today, Jimmy Butler this year, age 35, and quitting on his team, 17 points per game. Andrew Wiggins, 29, in a bounce-back year, as we've lauded him for, 17.1. So Wiggins is averaging 17.1, Butler 17. Butler's averaging half a rebound more per game. He's averaging double the assists per game. Ball in his hands, different type of setup, but he's averaging 4.8 assists to Wiggins' 2.3. Wiggins not really asked to facilitate in that manner. The Warriors would absolutely be looking to ask Jimmy Butler to facilitate in a manner when Stephen Curry is not on the floor. And hell, even at times when Stephen Curry, I think, is on the floor, they'd be looking to have Jimmy Butler facilitate to give Steph Curry a rest while Steph Curry is on the court. So Butler averaging double the assists. Jimmy Butler's averaging the steals basically even. Wiggins has got a 0.3 average more, basically both averaging under a block per game. Jimmy Butler shooting 54%. Andrew Wiggins shooting 45%. Andrew Wiggins 38% from three. Jimmy Butler 36% from three. So that's where you do get, I think, the most significant drop, and it's 2% in terms of the threes. They're basically shooting the same free throw percentage. Effective field goal percentage for Jimmy, 56.5 to 52.9. Jimmy has the advantage. And so, and again, this is Jimmy Butler dogging it and quitting on his current franchise. And he's basically putting up comparable or better numbers than Andrew Wiggins, 6 years younger in a bounce-back year, with the exception, really, of three-point shooting. That's the only, I think, significant advantage that Wiggins has. Well, so if you go get Jimmy Butler and you're losing Andrew Wiggins, and you get a motivated Jimmy Butler and a tenacious Jimmy Butler and a something to prove Jimmy Butler, you're getting a better player, but you still have to look to improve in other ways. Well, what if you go get Jimmy Butler and you get a stretch big and you still have Kuminga? Young Masuk of ESPN, and we don't have this audio, but this was filtering around during one of his hits, and we've talked about Vucevic a lot. He hinted that Miles Turner could be back in the fold for the Warriors. So what if you're getting a stretch big that can protect the rim in Miles Turner, and you're getting Jimmy Butler essentially for Andrew Wiggins, a future first-round pick, salary filler, and maybe some other salary fillers, your remaining salary fillers, going in the opposite direction for Miles Turner? Or could that all be combined into one deal to be able to facilitate Miami's needs in this thing? Stay tuned. But regardless, it does seem like the Warriors are cooking a little bit in terms of at least attempting to try and get back into the conversation as it relates to looking to get Jimmy back in the mix, if they can view it as much more of a buy low move. So who would you give up? Who would be off the table? 808 KNBR as we discuss it here on this Tuesday. Dubs OT. Warriors did get the win over the Jazz tonight, 114 to 103. Let's go ahead and take a quick timeout. We'll get to more from the chat. We got sounds at Dubs OT coming up on the other side. We will include Draymond Green in that as well. He addressed the trade rumor surrounding the Warriors and being back in the market for Jimmy Butler. We'll hear what Draymond had to say on his podcast as we continue here. Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls. I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here. Off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, welcome back. Sounds of Dubs OT from Harmonic Brewing. It is Dubs OT with JD. As we roll on here, Warriors do win 114-103 over the Utah Jazz. No Steph, no Draymond, no Kuminga. A lot of guys out in this one for Utah as well. Lauri Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, Walker Kessler, Johnny Juzang, Taylor Hendricks. And, the game was really – it was for the most part needles in the eyes bad. Like, let's just be real about it. Some individual positive performances for the Warriors in this one. But it really did feel like a preseason game. It like the whole game kind of felt like the second half of an early preseason game where a lot of the bench guys are playing and some of the back end starter and rotation players are playing, and you're just trying to figure it out and compete and get your work in before you get on to the next. That being said, again, as we've talked about here in the first hour of the show, positive performances from Dennis Schroeder, 23 points, Brandon Pajemski off the bench, Andrew Wiggins, 19, and the Warriors do prevail. Hit 17 threes. Also, Warriors with a big advantage shooting the three ball, which allowed them to prevail in this one by 11. Sounds of Dubs OT here on this Tuesday night, and let's continue the conversation we were having before the break as it related to the reports from ESPN and The Athletic that the Warriors are back in the Jimmy Butler hunt, and we heard from Shams of ESPN in the last segment. So let's tip off Sounds of Dubs OT with Draymond Green, right, Kyle? Because, I mean, it's just timely, right? Draymond's dropping and reacting to the news just like we're reacting to the news. So this was Draymond via his podcast with Baron Davis talking about the machinations of the Warriors trying to get Jimmy Butler.
It's hard to trade a guy that make $52 million a year. Like, you got to give up. For instance, if you look at our roster, say you want to trade, say you want to trade for Jimmy with the least amount of players that you could on our roster.
That's four.
That means either you got to trade Jimmy straight up for Steph, or you have to trade Jimmy for me and Wiggs. And it's like, right? So I don't think you're going to do that. So then now you start looking at
what else?
Well, you got to trade like 5 guys
to match that money.
One guy. Then you start getting into, well, you need a third team because now you got to clear rosters. It's hard to trade. And then also another thing is people don't understand in this league when you start talking trades. It's great players don't get traded. Right? Like that just don't happen. Like great players in their prime, you don't get traded.
So who is he referring to there? Himself? Steph, and I think Andrew Wiggins is as much as, I mean, he's a good player. But yeah, I mean, it is tricky to facilitate this deal. And again, I don't think the Warriors would be looking to do it if it was going to include Jonathan Kuminga. Not that Jonathan Kuminga makes a lot of money. He's in that, $7.6 million range. And I think the Warriors would prefer to not trade Andrew Wiggins if they could, but they can't. I think Wiggins has to be in this deal if they're looking to make it. And so there still may have to be a third team involved in all of this if it's going to happen. But yeah, Draymond on it and always real. And I think acknowledging the fact that he ain't going to be in the deal, which we already kind of knew. And I think, Kuminga I don't think is going to be in the deal. Obviously, Steph's not going to be in the deal. I don't think anybody would want Buddy Hield. If you could get somebody to take Buddy Hield at this point in the 3 years beyond this year he has left in his contract, that would be an additional reason to make it. But it's the Loonies and the GPs and I think the Kyle Andersons that have the potential to be included as part of this deal. Maybe Schroeder winds up with his $13 million. Again, Schroeder at 13, Kyle Anderson 8.7, GP 9.1, Kevon Looney 8. Those are all guys that have the potential to go in a deal, in addition to Wiggins and his 26.2. Again, Wiggins covers all but 22.5 of the deal in going somewhere, sending salary out for Jimmy Butler. So you would have to come up with, 21.7 could be Kyle Anderson and Schroeder, GP and Looney and Kyle Anderson going out would be maybe $4 to $5 million. The Warriors would could take back if they sent those guys out. But again, they're hard capped basically as it stands right now within hundreds of thousands of dollars at the second apron. So to Draymond's point, it is going to be tricky to be able to facilitate and make happen. All right, couple of clips here as they relate to tonight's game. Brandon Podziemski, the star of the night for the Warriors. So kind of a Podziemski theme here in this one. Let's hear from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, as he talked about Podziemski making the most of the time that he was out due to injury.
Yeah, Brandon looks really strong and sharp, determined. I thought he was fantastic tonight, and it's exciting to see. I mean, this is what he expected right from the start this season, and obviously the things started a little slowly for him, but he's really looking like himself now, and I think that time off did help.
Yeah, and I think he started to get it together, as we talked about earlier, before he ended up getting hurt. But he's come back and picked up right where he left off and even better, which I think is a good sign because the Warriors were counting on this Brandon Podziemski. I don't think they were necessarily counting on more than this Brandon Podziemski. I think he put a little bit too much pressure on himself. I think the organization put a little bit too much pressure on him with the way that they, considered him untouchable and probably let a few too many things get leaked out in the offseason that enabled him to put that pressure on himself. But regardless, if the Warriors are going to look to make a big move, if they're going to continue to just look to develop some of the younger players here down the stretch and kick the big potential move down the line to the summer, then they're going to need to be, I think, more reliant on the Podziemskis and the Moody's and the Kumingas once he returns from injury, likely after the All-Star break, in an attempt to make that happen. And so Brandon Podziemski getting the job done tonight and a quality performance from BP. All right, let's hear another from Steve Kerr and another one on Brandon Podziemski and just why it's so impactful when he's playing a buttoned-up game without a lot of mistakes, the positive things that he brings in terms of the intangibles.
Yeah, I think his swagger is part of what makes him who he is, and I think what we need is what you saw tonight: the energy, the passing, the connection. Long rebounds, loose balls. I thought he and Guy really came in and changed the game after that slow start that we had. Both those guys really provide that energy and that connection that we need.
Yeah, and again, he's somebody that you shouldn't have to necessarily rely on to have to score a lot of points to make a positive impact on the game. And so I think that's where, just taking some of the heat off as it relates to him having to score is really beneficial. And so this is the Brandon Podziemski, as I've said, that the Warriors signed up for this year, where the confidence is there and it helps in the big moments, but really it's more about those intangible things. All right, let's hear from Podziemski himself as he addressed the time missed and ways that time missed was beneficial for him.
Yeah, I think, sitting on the bench for 48 minutes for 12 or 13 games, whatever it was, it puts things into perspective for you, and you realize how much joy you have and love for the game, and how much it hurts when you don't get to be out there. And so for me, being an understanding of that, but also when you're watching, everything looks a little bit different from the sidelines than when you're actually out there playing. And so I tried to absorb as much as I could by watching these past games and try to implement it when I'm back here, and I'm feeling good. And I knew even through early season struggles, that it would eventually flip for me because I worked too hard and put too much into it.
Sometimes that's what it's all about. Sometimes taking a step back and watching can be beneficial. And I think we're seeing the benefits of that in the play from Podziemski. He's been the biggest bright spot since his return, I think, of anybody on the roster. And I know Quentin Post and Guy Santos deserve a lot of credit for what they've put in, but you go back to Podziemski being able to make that return here in, 3 games basically for Podziemski. But he's looked solid, and he's looked like a guy that can continue to contribute regardless of who the other high-end talents are on this Warriors roster. Another guy who's played pretty well here these last 3-4 games is Moses Moody. And Moses Moody's been playing more of the power forward with Kyle Anderson, who had been out. Draymond's obviously missed a bunch of time. And Jonathan Kuminga and Draymond and Kuminga, the top 2 power forwards almost exclusively on this team. With both of them out, Anderson would probably have slid in. But Moses Moody, along with a little bit of Guy Santos, have gotten opportunities to get out there. And Moses Moody has made the most of his opportunity, even as an undersized 4 in terms of height. He does have some girth and some strength to him to be a little bit of a small ball 4 against some lineups. A lot of them are going to be 4 guard lineups. Again, Moody projects, I think, more. I think he's a 3 personally. I don't think he's a 2. I think you can always get away with playing him at the 3. Warriors have been able to get away with playing him at the 4, and here Moses Moody discusses his comfort level at that position.
I feel like I'm kind of doing the same stuff, from 2 to 4. We pretty much do the same stuff out there, so it's a familiar position. It just, that's more so just who you guarding, I guess. But yeah, we run the same stuff. I'm in the same spots. We really just match up depending on who on the floor. So it's not like a set thing every time. I really don't feel much of a change from when I've been quote unquote playing. Like, it's just the same stuff.
Well, and I think he's been able to hold his own in terms of, I think, guarding up a position. I feel like it's easier for him to guard up a position, whether it's slower threes or, slower 4. It's the quick guys, I think, that give him trouble, whether it's the guards, if he ends up out there with a couple of point guards and he's playing the 2. It's the quick guys that give him issues. The stronger, slower guys don't necessarily give him the same amount of issues. And I think, look, he's got the ability. I think he has the ability to really be a 3-and-D kind of a player if he's on the court with enough other good players to where that can be his basic role. I think he thrives with being asked to do less, playing more while also being asked to do less. And I think he is multi-positional in that vein, and that's where he really has the ability to help this team, whether it's at the 4, as I don't think it will be, but showing that he can play that position respectably is important, especially as the Warriors look to shuffle the roster a little bit here. So Moses Moody addressing that, and I think it's good that it is so simple. Again, it's more about the guys that are on the court for the opposition, I think, and the matchups and the combinations. And look, Kerr's been forced into this because of the injury, so Moody's almost found his way as being kind of the next man up, and it's worked out to this particular point. So that is Sounds of Dubs OT for tonight here on this Tuesday. I do want to also give a nod to Kevon Looney as well. The Warriors probably don't win this game tonight if Kevon Looney doesn't come in and really make an impact. Guy Santos as well. You look at the plus-minus leaders, always like to do that. Guy Santos plus 25 in his 23 minutes tonight, despite only scoring 7 points. And Kevon Looney, 6 points, 11 boards, a couple of assists, a steal, 2 blocks. Kevon Looney was a presence in this one. 5 offensive rebounds. Guy Santos had 4 offensive rebounds. Warriors had 16 offensive rebounds in the game. And Kevon Looney in his 24 minutes really made a positive impact on things. Trace Jackson Davis only played the first 6 minutes of the game. That was it. Wasn't a Trace Jackson Davis night, but it was a Kevon Looney night, and it was a Quentin Post night. And Looney, really one of the unsung heroes in this one for the Warriors. Kyle, I do want to play. We mentioned this. I got a couple of text messages to get to. We talked about maybe playing the Steve Kerr pregame. We're going to do a bonus cut, the pregame on Andre Iguodala, because it all clicked in there as I was talking about Kevon Looney being an unsung hero for tonight. Something cool. The Warriors, in case you didn't hear, are going to be retiring the jersey number 9 of Andre Iguodala. They're going to be doing it in just a couple of weeks, February the 23rd at Chase Center. That's a Sunday afternoon game against the Dallas Mavericks, so Klay Thompson can be a part of it. After the game, the Warriors are going to have a ceremony where they will raise to the rafters Andre Iguodala's number 9. So he becomes the first of what's going to be quite a few of the Warriors' dynastic championship era. I had the opportunity to ask Steve Kerr pregame during his media availability about Iguodala being the first one to get the nod, and here's what he had to say.
Many, obviously.
Yeah, I saw his comment. He said, "I'm just the oldest, not the first." I like that, but very fitting. I thought Andre was the guy who set the tone here his first year by being willing to come off the bench. He set a tone of unselfishness, and that helped us win that first title. And then, of course, he was Finals MVP, which was the perfect ending to that season. But Andre, in my mind, was the unsung hero of that whole era. You know, everyone knows about Steph and Clay and Kevin Durant, Draymond, but Andre was the guy who sort of tied it all together. Brilliant two-way basketball player, a brilliant basketball mind, unlocked so much of the stuff that we did at both ends of the floor because of his intellect and his athleticism, and he was really fun to coach. Total wise ass, complete wise ass. Made me laugh every day. So love Andre.
Yeah, Steve loves himself some Andre. And again, you talk about guys that if they weren't around, you wouldn't have had a certain level of success. Iguodala, and as Steve mentioned, his willingness to come in and come off the bench. And, you know, after starting, I mean, he started the last Mark Jackson year, and they moved Harrison Barnes to the bench. Steve comes in, he flip-flops it, thinks he can get more out of Harrison Barnes by having Harrison Barnes start at the 3. Iguodala comes off the bench. They create the death lineup with Steph and Clay and Iguodala and Harrison Barnes and Draymond Green playing the small ball center, and that winds up being the lineup that not only helps him beat Memphis in that first championship run, but helps him beat the Cavaliers during the first championship run. And Iguodala ends up Finals MVP back in 2015. Hard to believe 10 years have gone by already since then. But, yeah, Iguodala, one of many. When you look at Draymond and Clay and Steph, I mean, the Warriors are going to have to get Steph. The Warriors are going to have to maybe find some new numbers. I mean, it's just like 30's gone, 11's gone, 9's going to be gone. Obviously, 23 for Draymond Green is going to be going up in the rafters. And I think 35 is going up in the rafters too, Kyle. Nobody's worn it since. 35's going in the rafters, Kyle. Isn't it? Kyle,
I think it's a debate, but I was listening to Marcus Thompson on the morning show, and he was like, yeah, they're definitely going to do something for Katie, whether it's a statue with the 4 other players or retire his jersey.
I think he gets the jersey retired. I really do. 2 Finals MVPs. It's not a dynasty without Kevin Durant. Like that is a fact. Steph, he is the headliner to all of it. He is in his own category, ahead of KD, ahead of Clay and Draymond. But I think KD's 35, and it's funny. I was kind of looking up at the corner of the building tonight that I think they're gonna look to put him in, and yeah, I think it's gonna be 30, 11, 23, 35, and 9. I think are all going to be in there when it's all said and done, as far as hanging from the rafters. All right, let's go ahead and take one more quick timeout, and then we'll come back. We'll do some fun with numbers. I do want to get to a couple of text messages that I have not been able to get to this point. I'm glad we got all the audio cleared up here for the last hour of the show. Big thanks to Kyle Haar and Greg Silver, our buddy, for helping out in terms of trying to facilitate everything that was going on in the control room. Tomorrow, I think we're going to try and make tomorrow a Greg Silver night as he'll hop in tomorrow or Friday, hopping in for a segment on Dubs OT as well, as the Warriors do win 114-103. So more from the YouTube chat, couple of text messages, and then fun with numbers here as we look ahead to the Warriors and the Thunder tomorrow right here, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Fate of the universe on the line, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth. You better hit it. I want Iguodala.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, final segment. Fun with numbers coming up here in just a second. Warriors win 114-103. Big thanks to everybody at Harmonic Brewing here in Thrive City. Always fun. Stop by, say hi. If you're in the area tomorrow or Friday or on Monday, as we'll be out here tomorrow, and Copes and Derek Papa are going to be out here from 2 to 6 doing the show tomorrow and Friday. they're going to be doing the show here at Harmonic. So if you're coming to the game either of those days, you can meet Adam Copeland, you can meet Derek Papa, you can meet Jimmy, the manager here at Harmonic in Thrive City as well. And it's a great place to have a beer and have a good time before and after the game. I'll be on with those guys tomorrow before the game for a segment, and then back here as we do after each and every game here at Chase Center on the Sports Leader. All right, quick call. Ian in Livermore next here on KNBR. What's going on tonight, Ian? You want to weigh in on the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes as it stands?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been talking about this trade on KNBR for the last 6 weeks. And you're the first one I heard really crunch the numbers on what's going to take to get it done. You know, it's kind of like the same thing with marketing. You know, you're dealing with Danny Ainge. Now you're dealing with Pat Riley. You know, these guys want to. You
are, Ian, but this is a little different. I'll let you continue. It's a little different, I think, because of the now 3 suspensions for Butler and his desire to, like, I feel like the Warriors have a little bit more leverage in this thing than they did in the Utah marketing talks. And I think the reason they're back in it after being out of it for the last few weeks is the fact that they feel like they can get them on a bargain. So not going to be easy, but I think if they thought they were going to have to give up too much, they wouldn't be looking to do it.
So at a minimum, it's going to take Wiggins and, you know, 2 or 3 other players. Maybe Schroeder, you know, like you said, maybe Slow-Mo. But, you know, Riley, he's going to want someone like Pajemski if it's not Kuminga in there. And then how many first-round picks is he going to want? 1, 2, 3? I mean, and then if we don't give him a max contract, he's walking after the end of the year. So I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah, that's the big part of it. I mean, that is the risk involved in it, is all of that. And look, you don't make the move if you're not comfortable paying him. And I know in the YouTube chat, our buddy Andis Brown had said, hey, I'm not comfortable with this until we find out, and I'm paraphrasing, what exactly Jimmy Butler's demands are going to be. Would he do a 2-year deal? Does he demand a 4-year deal? Is he willing to do, you know, something in the 50 range, 50, 50, 50, you know, for a couple years? Or is he going to demand it's, you know, 50, 55, 60, and it's got to be 65 in the 4th year? Like, what is he going to demand? And you need to know those things ahead of time. All of those points are fair, because here's the thing. If you make the decision that this is going to be the move, then this is the move, right? Like, this is the one big move for the remainder, basically, of the entire Steph Curry era. And you'll be cashing in your chips, Ian. So it is not, I don't think it would be more than 1 pick. And I don't think any of the young players, Pajemski, Moody, or Kuminga, would be involved in it. Otherwise, I don't think the Warriors would necessarily be looking to do it, because I think they'd be more willing to include those players and more picks for another player should that player come available in the summer. So I don't think they're going to do it if it's not buy low, but it sounds like it has the potential to be buy low as much as buy low can be when you're still giving up Andrew Wiggins and at least 1 pick. And as you said, you got to pay the guy.
You know, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable going more than 2 years, and, you know, 2 for 100 would still kind of a lot, you know, line it up with Steph, you know, for his, you know, remaining contract and Dre's remaining contract. But any more than that, I mean, I don't know if we can, you know, responsibly do it.
Yeah, fair point. And again, I think a lot of this is going to come more clearly in the next few days. And Phoenix is hot on the heels. Phoenix wants to get this thing done. Phoenix has said flat out, and thank you, Ian, for the call. Phoenix has said straight up, if they can get him, they'd pay him. They'd give him the full deal. So I think, you know, Phoenix is probably where Butler would prefer to go. Again, I think 2 years would be the most that I'd be willing to want to go. But again, he's got 1 and 52. That's his option. So does that mean you have to give him 2 on top of the 1? Does it mean you have to give him 3 because he's giving you 1 back? You know, and so that would be all have to be negotiated ahead of time here before you make the deal. But I think the Warriors could pallet no Kuminga, no Pajemski, no Moody even being in the deal. Because again, it would. They were willing to do Paul George. They were willing to give Paul George 4 years. And look, I think Jimmy Butler's better than Paul George. I don't. Jimmy Butler is a clear-cut 2-1A. I think even at 35, Paul George is not a 1, or even he might not even really be a 2 anymore. And so you look at the Sixers when they're right, it's Embiid and Maxey, and then Paul George. Now Embiid has never been right, so Paul George is by default been the 2 this year. But I don't know. I think it all obviously has to be factored in. Let's get to a couple of texts here, and I appreciate this. JD 408, JD Golden State Lumber Building Materials text line. Would you say that was a meh win? And would you put much stock into the Butler rumors? I'm putting a lot of stock in the Butler rumors. I think the Warriors are trying to get a bargain. I think you also have to remember what the Warriors have said, though, about not being willing to mortgage too much of the future in an attempt to make this thing happen. And so I think it's going to have to be almost a perfect deal for the Warriors. Otherwise, the Warriors are not going to do it. As far as the game tonight, meh win. Don't put much stock into it at all. But as I always say, it's better than the alternative. 707, JD, please tell your radio listeners why you think the Warriors should go after Jimmy Butler. I don't see it. So your opinion would be appreciated. Well, he would be the number 2 next to Steph Curry for the next 2 years. And he's somebody that's proven when motivated to be able to put a team on his back. Two-way player. Tenacious competitor. He would be the guy that would free up Steph. He would be the guy along with Draymond Green that would be able to facilitate a top-level defense. Those are the pros to it. There really aren't any on-court cons to it. It's just the money and what you would have to give up. That to me is what, like, the on-court cons of getting Jimmy Butler as long as he's motivated. I mean, it's all pros. It's just, is he going to be motivated? That's one of the questions. And what are you going to give up? So I'm lean more do it than not do it if it's not going to cost you Kuminga, Podziemski, Moody, and maybe only one future pick in addition to Wiggins. And I'm not a trade Wiggins guy at all. But Butler's numbers have basically been better in a year where he's quit on his team and shut it down than Wiggins have been in this bounce back year that we've praised Wiggins for, and he's earned that praise. But he's still, Butler has the ability still to be more of an alpha next to Steph. That box now is checked, and I think everybody else on the roster has the potential to fall in line. You get a look at it for the final 2 months of the year with what's left after you send some guys out and trade, and then you spend the offseason augmenting the thing around Steph and around Jimmy Butler, and you try to win a title next year. That's what it all – you got a 2-year window at that point to try to win a title, and you still have Kuminga that you can use as a trade chip, or you have Kuminga that you still can use if the whole thing blows up in your face and you're looking to rebuild. You'd still have Kuminga as part of your rebuild, which is something that I don't think anybody thought would have the potential to be the case. So it gives you flexibility on that front as well. I mentioned Andis getting Jimmy. I need to see what Jimmy wants in contract before comfortable trading for him. Ken Bareilles, instead of Jimmy Butler, how about Colin Sexton and John Collins for Draymond? Salary filler and no. I mean, Colin Sexton's at point guard. John Collins plays no defense. Like he's soft. Like John Collins has got to be like your 4th best player. Like what? Like, come on. What do we do? What are we talking about? G. Finley, I'm out on Butler, Enrique, Jimmy Knees. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Is there a way to get Jimmy buckets without trading Wiggs or JK? That from Rich Ray. Yeah, Draymond, which they're not going to do. So there you go. No question. Bennett Roth, Doug Christie punching the air right about now. Yeah. We did end up fixing the audio. So yeah, appreciate everybody who is chiming in on the audio. We'll make sure we're on top of that at the beginning of the show, double checking things here. Moving forward, so we don't have to get it through the entire first segment. But appreciate everybody who stuck with us through that first segment tonight as we corrected the issue here. So yeah, good stuff tonight. Appreciate everybody in the YouTube chat. Rebel DeSounds, can the Warriors win 2 more games? Yeah, we'll see. History, at least recent history, would tell you no, they probably can't win the next 2 games. History would tell you they're probably going to win 1 of the next 2 games. Although I think that theory is really going to be tested because Phoenix is playing a little better. And, I mean, OKC's the team with the best record in the NBA. And although Steph should be fresh and ready to roll for tomorrow, I think that's going to be important. James A., the Warriors need to bring in Kevin Knox on a 10-day contract. We shall see. All right. Let's end with some fun with numbers here on this Tuesday night here as the Warriors get the win. Now, 2 of the last 3. So they're 2-1 on the homestand, 23-23 overall, 13-12 at home, 6-2 in the first of the back-to-backs. Warriors got their 9th straight win against the Jazz in the Bay Area. The Jazz had not beaten the Warriors in just about 3 years going back, which was the last time they were able to win. The Warriors have won the last 7 overall against the Jazz. 27 different starting lineups for the Dubs. And another unique one is 9 of the last 10 of the last 11 games, the Warriors have had a different starting lineup. Another clutch game for the Warriors. They're 28th. Hey, they get credit for a clutch win tonight. How about that? They're padding that clutch record tonight against Utah, 14-14 in 28 clutch games. And the 3rd time this season, the Warriors have played without Steph Curry and Draymond Green. What's going on, Alex? You can hop in. Just hop on and say what's up to the people. Alex, yeah. Alex is fired up. Yeah, and Alex had to also kill the open light here behind me because Harmonic's shutting it down here in the next couple of minutes. The Warriors' 3rd time without Steph, both Steph and Draymond, 1-2. First time they won without both of them this year. Kuminga's missed the last 12, and the Warriors 6-3 without Curry. Oddly enough, 5-7 now without Draymond Green. Warriors 39%. They had lost 21 games in a row where they had shot under 40%. So how about that? The Warriors get a win when shooting under 40%. That had not happened since, is this right? December 8th, 2021. The last time the Warriors won a game, they did not shoot at least 40% from the field. You got to go all the way back, 3 years ago. 7th time this season, the Warriors came back from trailing by 10. We talked about the team high 23 for Dennis Schroeder. Brandon Pajemski ended up with 20, his second 20-point game of the season. Moses Moody, 7 games in a row in double figures. And Kevon Looney, 11 boards off the bench, 10th time with 10 or more rebounds for Kevon Looney. All right, that's going to do it. Appreciate everybody in the YouTube chat. Thanks to Kyle Haar. Thanks to, I saw Kyle Chung in. Was it Kyle Chung tonight, Kyle?
Oh, yeah, and Jacob.
Kyle Chung and Jacob Violante and Overnight Dave.
And shout out Greg Silver again for helping me with audio. We
shout out
figured it
to
out.
Greg Silver for correcting our audio issue on YouTube in the first segment. We got our computer squared away. We'll be ready to roll tomorrow, right back here from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Dubs get the win 114-103. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Sexton down the lane to lay it up and out. Moody played the D. Looney got another rebound. Everybody has to be ready to help. Moody came over at exactly the right time. Pajemski pouring three. Brandon's got 20. It started with a D. They pushed it to double figures again.
Emirates Cup or bust.
Oh, hell yeah.
First of all, you got to start off liking each other.
I'm super cereal.
Big fat dub.
Ain't nobody going to stop me.
I just wake up and I can shoot it no matter if I'm playing or not.
But great win.
Who are these guys?
I love you, JD. Bye, sugar.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.